and how by doing so you'll be able to gain greater control. And as I'm sure you're very much aware, making sure that all the invoices in your organization are handled with control and full compliance can be one of the hardest tasks in an AP department. Increased workloads and short deadlines really eat away at the time that you need for some of the vital checks that you need to make. So departments need to find ways to develop processes which gain the maximum benefits, cost savings, and efficiencies to drive the department forward. So during the course of the webinar, we're going to discuss some of the things that you need to be doing to make sure that you achieve the results that you need. Okay, so before we get started, let me introduce you to your presenters today. Peter Sjöberg from Canon has worked in the P2P industry for around 15 years, mostly as a product manager, but also in product design and training. And today he's going to share some of that experience with you, and I really hope you're going to be able to take away some great slices of information to help you and your teams add some real value to your AP department. And I'm Ellen, editor of Accounts Payable News, and my aim is to offer finance professionals a forum where they can address some of the challenges and issues facing their departments, as well as to discuss some of the topical industry news and jobs, surveys, reports, events, etc. Right, so just before we begin, here's a quick look at the agenda for this morning. Peter's going to give you a brief overview of Canon before delving into some real-life examples of what can be done to improve your current processes and how by doing so you can protect your organization as well from fraud. Okay, so before I hand you over, this session is interactive, and you do have the opportunity to ask any questions by adding them into the free text box over in your GoToWebinar panel just over on the right-hand side there. So if you type these in during the course of the webinar, I'll ask Peter to address any questions that you have at the end. Okay, so let me now pass you over to Peter Sjöberg from Canon. Peter, over to you.
Yeah, thank you. So what we're going to talk about today is to handle the incoming invoices at your AP department. And as we said, I've been working with this type of products now for 15 years, and I like to classify the incoming invoices in three different ways. So what first I want to do is to see all the incoming invoices that has an order number. If we have an order number on the invoice, we probably have a good ordering system or PO system of some sort where I can get the information from and see how much have we ordered, what was the price, what have we goods received, and what are the tolerance in the system that we can match against, so we can see that, okay, here's an incoming invoice, plus minus 2% or maximum £10, and if it's within the tolerance, we know that the order is already approved for. Someone has already said that, well, you can buy this, so in that sense we don't need to look at the invoice. We can just move it on and send it for information to some person if they want to see it, but directly send it to the ERP system for payment. If it isn't an order, I like to set up contracts, and by a contract you can call that a recurring invoice as well. So that is all the incoming invoices that we know exactly how to handle. All of those boring invoices that comes with the fruit basket and a reception, the rent, the mobile phones, the leasing cars, the copy machines, the cleaning and electricity, and parking for the company cars, and what have we, all of those recurring invoices. What we can do then is that we set up a contract in the system saying that, okay, this invoice or from this supplier, we will probably get an invoice around the 25th every month, plus minus 3 days, and it's approximately 100 euro, plus minus 2% or plus 1% minus 50, or whatever tolerance we want to set. and we can then let the manager approve this contract for, let's say, 12, 24, 36 months. And what happened here is that as soon as that invoice arrives to the system, we try to order match it. It wasn't an order, so let's try to match it against the contract. And in this case, we can see that, okay, here's a contract for that fruit basket or for that leasing contract with that copy machine or what have we. And if it's within the tolerance, again, it's already approved. We know how to handle it. We know how to post it. So we can just do that automatically and send it away. For all the other incoming invoices, we use the reference on the invoice and see that, okay, here we have a reference called Peter Sjöberg or Sjöberg Peter or P. Sjöberg or even my mobile phone number or any other mark on the invoice. That means that when we see that invoice, we know that Peter is working for this and this department, and we know that the invoice is from this and this supplier, and we can look at a couple of different things to make sure that we send it to the right person and also suggest a good posting or based on our experience, a posting for that invoice. So the idea here is to handle as much as possible automatically. We want to have the system help us move as much of the invoices out to the correct person without having to stop at the AP department, so we can focus on the things that actually needs our help. So we can be the exception handlers and make sure that everything is corrected before sent out. Or if we suddenly get an invoice in from a new supplier, maybe it could be a fraud supplier, are we really sure that we want to handle this type of invoice? So let's go into details here. What we do with the incoming order is that we look on the incoming order, we scan the invoice in, so we get all the data from the invoice. It finds the headers for certain things like invoice number, supplier number, VAT, total, and also the line items. It can read all the line items from this invoice and pick up the detail of this invoice. Now, when we got the data from that invoice, the first thing that happened is that we look at the data and say, can we do header level matching or line level matching? Header level matching means that, yeah, we have an order with all the details, but from the invoice side, the only thing we know is that this has the invoice has been scanned with the supplier name, an order number, a total, and a VAT amount. That is what we call header level matching. So with header level matching, what we have is that we can match against the total amount of goods received goods. So for example, let's say that we ordered 100 pieces, we received 10, the invoice has a value that is equal to the value of 10 received pieces, so now we can do matching. Or we can do line level matching, meaning that we know on the order it says one hammer, one blue screwdriver, one whatever, or one package of bolts, for example. And we can also then see on the invoice side what's on the invoice, and we will always match against goods received, meaning that we only pay the invoice if someone in the organization said that, yeah, we have received that goods. Well, you know, for some type of orders, like for example, if I order an airplane ticket or I buy a hotel or something like that, hotel room, then no one will really care about doing goods receipts. So for certain type of order, we can do automatically deliver, so no one has to actually do goods deliver for that type of order. We can set a generic tolerance for all the orders, saying that, okay, for our company, we say that plus minus 2%, but a maximum of 10 euros is the generic tolerance for order matching. But we can also say that, okay, for supplier Dell, for example, we want to have 0 tolerance, whereas with the supplier Walmart, we may accept plus minus 10%, for example. Or say plus 10 minus 50, whichever combination that works for you. We can also have different tolerance on header level and on line level. And the reason for that is that for some supplier, we want to make sure that what we have on the order, the price catalog that we have on the order side, says that this item cost 10 euros. Then it should say 10 euros on the invoice as well. So we set 0 tolerance on the line level, whereas on the header level, we may want to add a little bit bigger space or bigger tolerance in order to address other problems. And as you all also know, it's often so that you have an order of, for example, a laptop and a keyboard and a mouse. But on the invoice side, it has 5 lines. It says a laptop and a keyboard and a mouse, and then freight cost, and then some packaging or environmental fee or what have we. So we need to have a way of automatically capture that freight cost. Set it with a specific posting and have a specific tolerance also for that. So the tolerance could be both in percentage, as I said, and an actual value, saying that plus minus X%, but maximum of 10 euros or 10 pound sterling or whatever. And as I said, also we can have different tolerance, plus 2, minus 50, and so on. And I already talked about the freight cost here, the packaging. The important thing here is that each of these has its own posting. So if we find something on the invoice here saying freight cost, we will go to the freight cost and post it as freight, and also check the tolerance, saying that the maximum accepted cost for tolerance could be 50 euros here. The same goes with packaging. So packaging is posted as packaging with its own tolerance, and admin fees or taxes or what have we could also have has a separate posting and a separate tolerance. The good thing here is now we will have automatic matching on orders on 3 lines, but with an invoice of 5-6 lines. If we have an exception, like for example if we have a price tolerance, then send it to the purchaser. If we have a delivery problem, send it to the people at the warehouse or the guy or girl who received the goods and say that you haven't received this or there's some problem here. So the exception will be sent to the correct person based on the business rules we have set up for this type of matching or this type of supplier or this type of order. So it could be handled based on your business rules. Now, if it wasn't an order, we want to set up easy contracts. I mean, you can look at this as recurring invoices or non-PO invoices that is still acts like a PO invoice. So what you can do here is that let's take my coffee machine here as my example, is that I want to handle this incoming invoice for my coffee machine and I want to do it on an automatic way so I don't have to look at it every every month because I know exactly how to handle it. So I can set up something saying that, okay, we want, or we probably will receive this invoice around the 25th every month, and plus minus 3 days is acceptable. That means that an invoice that arrives on the 10th of a month, and that month won't be handled automatically. This means that this is probably an exception that needs to be sent to someone specific that to look at. So for those invoices, we will send them to the named person or the named workflow. But for if the invoice arrive within the tolerance of the date here, we will just go to next step and look at the amount. So we can now set an amount, and we can then split the cost, saying that we will post 150 in my example here as a rental fee. We will post another 150 as a service and maintenance cost, and the rest up to the maximum tolerance is the coffee we have been drinking. So that's just consumption, and that will then automatically be posted to that account, meaning that if an invoice arrives that is between 300 and let's say 500, it will be automatically handled. 300 will be posted as fixed cost, and everything above that 300 will be posted as consumption. This could be used for leasing cars and petrol. This could be used for copy machine and paper, etc. So there's many different ways of setting up this type of things. And naturally, you can split this cost on 8 different departments, for example, or any number of departments, saying that the leasing fee would be posted at cost center 1, 3, and 5, whereas service and maintenance will be split on 10% on each department and the rest on administration, for example. And everything here is handled automatically, because what we see here is that the incoming invoice, we see that it's from this supplier, it has this contract number, and as I said earlier, we know that this contract or this virtual contract, this recurring invoice setup has been approved by some manager before, and it's okay now for the time period of 24 or 36 or 30 months, whatever. You can also have the system automatically prolong the or extend the contract by another 12 months and add the 2% to the as an index raise on the cost for this contract, for example. The third thing we do is that if it wasn't an order and it wasn't a contract, then we need to find a way to send this to the correct person. And we use reference, or actually we use reference number 1 and 2 on the invoice. So you can point out any 2 fields on the invoice saying that this is my reference number 1 and this is the reference number 2. And then we can add functionality also on the supplier and amount and other things here. So if we, for example, get an invoice that says Peter Sjöberg as reference number 1, then it's sent automatically to me for handling. But if we have Peter Sjöberg and a project number as the reference number 2, then it could be sent on a totally different route. Or if we have Peter and the supplier is Dell, then we send it to me and also the IT manager, because everything that is related to Dell must be handled by the IT manager. But if the amount is more than this and this or less than this and this, we can send it on completely different routes. So what we have here is a very easy way. If you can point and click, you can set up these business rules in the system to set workflow for this different type of incoming invoice. Combined with this, we add we set up the workflow, as I said, but we also set up a posting suggestion, meaning that just as I had in the previous example here, we could set up a posting suggestion on how to post that coffee machine on rent and on leasing cost and maintenance and consumption. We can here set up any number of posting line as the suggested posting for this workflow. And again, if I get my invoice to my reference, number one, just to Peter Sjöberg, it's sent to me, well, the posting suggestion would then be probably a generic account and my cost center, nothing else. But if we get an invoice in with my reference and the supplier Dell, then we definitely know that this will be posted as computer hardware, and we could then split the cost between 3 departments and so on. Just to help the end user here with as much information as possible. So when the invoice arrived to that person, it should be sent on the correct workflow. It should have as good posting as possible, and the person should now just be able to check and make sure that everything is correct. The reason for this is that you want to have control and compliance when handling invoice. You want to make sure that this guy could only see his own cost center, whereas this girl could only post on a certain number of account, but she can split it on 3 different projects, but only on her 2 different cost center that she handles. So making sure that the right person could see the right thing, and also making sure that they can only change the things that they are allowed to, and making sure that the manager here, that she can only approve for cost in her own department during this time frame up to this amount of money, or else she might need to have help with her colleague and they together approve for the extra cost, for example. So again, an invoice, arriving invoice, should always go as fast as possible to the correct decision makers, and we don't want to have AP personnel look at every invoice. I mean, naturally you can do that. There's absolutely no problem if you have that type of process where you should look at every invoice and so on. But you can easily yourself set up those business rules by point and clicking, choosing a workflow, choosing a posting suggestion, or creating a posting suggestion. So next time that invoice arrives from the mobile phone company, you get 80 invoices in at the same time, and you know that it should go to certain persons based on the mark on the invoice saying which department that mobile phone comes from. Then just create those rules, and next time you get those 80 invoices into the system, it's all gone from your screen being the AP person. It's directly or immediately it's sent to the correct person with that help they need in order to handle it themselves. So just as an example, what you see here is that you see the supply, that this is an invoice sent from Best Western. There's no order number, there's no contract number on this one. So what we have done is that we used the Katja Visser as the reference. We posted or created the automatic workflow here. We posted it correctly, and what you can see here is that someone before me, I'm now the consultant number 1, has been posting or creating comments here, and also sent an attachment with me together with the invoice. So I can see all the details here. And you can run reports analyzing the workflow, or in my example here, I just took an example that we look at invoice processing days and see that, okay, from this supplier we have one invoice that was sent to 7 different persons. It took us 30 days to handle this invoice. So we may want to look into this, but again, it's only one invoice. It doesn't really bother us that much, but here we have 10 invoices that comes from this supplier, and it's handled by 3 persons. It took 13 days, and as you can see, we get a lot of invoice from this supplier, so it takes us quite a time to handle this invoice. And again, analyze the problem, help the system to work better and better. Or run any report based on any information from the invoice. So any field on the invoice that you can see here can be created or can be used as a filter in this report, and you can save the report as your standard report and recall it every so often and run that report every week. And as you can see, there's a lot of standard reports here for bottleneck report, for supplier balance, for invoicing, or for all your requisitions, your contracts and so on, expenses that you have and so on. So all the user, based on their privilege, their role that they run in, can now run the reports and do this themselves. If you look at an average company, I'd say that some companies has as low as 20% of their orders is or the invoices are order invoices. Some have 80–90%. But what I do know is that from studies, we have seen that about 15–20% of your incoming invoices is those recurring, boring invoices that looks the same, handles the same every fortnight or every month, and you do exactly the same every time. So by just adding a contract here, we will remove that 15–25% of your work. I've seen companies that has as high as 53% of their incoming invoices is set up as contract, and the only invoices they see are the exceptions, the one that you really want to handle. And the rest is naturally your reference handling. I mean, again, you should only create reference matching for the invoices that you get a lot. For invoices that you get once in a while, you may want to handle them manually or just send it out to someone as the first step, and then we'll then find the right approver and so on. But again, AP personnel should handle the important things like setting up the exception or do the exception handling, setting up the business rule, helping the organization with your knowledge. I mean, you're highly skilled personnel that could actually help the organization to find the bottlenecks, to find that supplier that always charge you extra and so on, and improve the workflow. So this is what we think you should do, and help prevent fraud in the organization, and both from incoming invoice but also internally, and handle the control and compliance, and not just copy paper and put them in binders and so on.
Okay, thanks very much, Peter. A very informative webinar. We have had a few questions about the slides. So yes, we'll be sending a feedback form to you. So if you fill that out, we'll send the slides along afterwards. And if anyone should have any more questions, then just please let me know, and I can get those answers back to you. Okay, so thanks once again for attending, and make sure you keep a lookout for the next APN webinar coming up on the 12th of March, where we'll be looking at how to organize your AP function for success. I hope you all enjoy the rest of your day, and thanks once again to you, Peter, from Canon, and thanks so much to everybody for attending. Thank you very much.